good night, and I am more than happy to be with you again on yet another program of Let's Talk Politics, a program brought to you by the People's Progressive Party Civic, where we continue to ventilate and have discussions, hold discussions on the issues you find in the world of politics today, especially in Guyana. Today I'm joined by a distinguished bunch of activists in their own right. All three gentlemen joining me tonight, I know personally, and I'm also aware they are very passionate about democracy in Guyana and ensuring that Guyana's democratic principles prevail. I'm, of course, your host, Michael Gordon. And first, I would like to thank those of you looking at this program on the People's Progressive Party Facebook page and all the other sister pages on Freedom Radio and elsewhere. I thank you for joining us. I have the distinct honor of introducing first Mr. Rion Peters, as I said, activist in his own right, Mr. Ossie Rogers, who has been very vocal in Radioland, and Mr. Is Patrick joining? I am not sure if we have gotten back Patrick, but we're also joined by Mr. Patrick John, who's been very active in ensuring democracy in Guyana prevails. I also am aware that he has played a very significant part as a guardian of democracy. So Patrick John, Rion Peters, Ossie Rogers, gentlemen, welcome to this program tonight.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, there is much to discuss. There is much that has been happening in the body politic in Guyana. One of the main issues we have found, however, is a paucity of sincerity on the part of the main opposition, APNU AFC. Just re-entering, deservedly so, re-entering opposition after one term in office. And a term that can be described as dismal. And my reference to that is juxtaposed against the most recent NACTA poll, which in essence says it all as it relates to a 58% disapproval rating for the APNU AFC and a significantly higher approval rating for the Dr. Irfan Ali administration. I believe it's very instructive of the initiatives and the manner with which the government of Guyana has been engaging all and has been embarking on national developmental initiatives. The PPP enjoys today, based on this most recent NACTA poll, an 65% approval rating. Rion, I'm going to begin with you.
Well, the poll certainly is a reflection of what or how Guyana feel about the Dr. Ifeanyi led government. We all know that the government has been doing a lot. The government has been visiting every community across the length and breadth of Guyana. The government has certainly been working in the interests of every single Guyanese, regardless of where you're located, regardless of your religious belief, regardless of your ethnicity. You know, we now have a government in Guyana that intends to ensure that every single Guyanese benefit from the resources of the state, that every Guyanese, that their livelihood is being improved. The poll also would have indicated that you have a bunch of persons, as you would have said, rightfully consider the opposition in this country, who certainly, even in opposition, they certainly doesn't enjoy the confidence of the people of this country. You know, their actions are clear that even in opposition, they cannot serve the people of this country.
I'm going to bring you in here. when a government enjoys, when 65% of the people, when 65 out of every 100 people gives the government of the day a thumbs up for the performance, they have, in the manner with which they have been performing. And you have to also take into consideration, Patrick, that the 58 of every 100 people gives the thumbs down to the opposition of the day. This has to be taken against the backdrop that a significant portion of that 58% are traditionally or would have supported the opposition at the polls less than just about a year ago. So I believe it's very indicative of the manner with which the APNU AFC has been seen in recent times. Patrick, I know you're a man on the ground. Tell me, what is the feel?
What I know, that 58% will increase. There's no question about it. Because from 2015, when APNU took office, the whole country was going downhill. The economy, everything. People was getting laid off, especially the stevedots. They wasn't getting jobs. They only eat when they work. They wasn't getting jobs because import cut down. Everything was going to a wreck. So that 58% will increase, and the 65 will increase too. They both will increase, which shows clear that PPP is working for the country, the entire nation, matter race, sex, religion, or whatever. Everybody say, okay, let's see what APN you're going to do, and I was telling them since during the election, you know what you have, you don't know what you're getting. Let's keep PPP. A lot of people didn't listen. They went ahead, okay. They see what APN is made of. They're made of all selfishness. They're just for themselves. And they're cloning or whoever they have around them. They don't care about the people. They put the people last. And when they say last, the only time they know them when it's time for election. Then they come to them, oh, we got this, we got no, 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 no. Those days are over when we used to look at race and party and all that. It's going downhill with that. People are looking who's going to do the right thing for the country as a whole, and not just as a party or race. And I'm glad that that is going out now, that we're looking at who doing the right work. And I know PPP will continue to do the right work because they are doing the best they can, or they might be able to do a little bit better after this pandemic. Be able to do more because the economy will open up more and more jobs would circulate. A lot of people start back to school and everything. So we expect better, way more better later down in the year.
And I want to sound the warning to the APNU AFC. And I need to stop saying APNU AFC. I want to sound the warning to the People's National Congress. You raise the issue of race, and I'm coming to you, Ossie, on this issue of the NACTA poll. But Patrick touched on a very important subject, and that's the issue of race. I believe the composition of tonight's panel on a People's Progressive Party program is warning enough to the People's National Congress reform. Take heed. Or see, the NACTA poll, 65% approval rate and 58% disapproval rate. And Patrick made another very good point. The 58% of disapproval of APNU's approach to whatever it does is likely to increase disapproval. There's likely to be more disapproval. I know while you're residing and working in the U.S., you're very close to the issues in your beloved Guyana. I know you have played your part as an activist, not just on radio, but in the diaspora, especially in the New York area, and of course, other parts of the United States. Your views on this most recent poll in the context of the performance of the Ali administration and also the performance of a Harman-led opposition in the National Assembly.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me on the program, Michael, and good evening to the rest of the panel, and also to all the viewers on Facebook. Now, I would want to suggest that the poll might be still inaccurate because I believe that Guyanese, seeing where we came from when APNU AFC ran Guyana for 5 years and where we are today, I believe that there is way more than 65% approval rating for the People's Progressive Party in Guyana. Why I say this? Um, I know of people in Linden, where I came from, who would send me messages privately to say, man, I was really happy with the $25,000 cash grant and stuff like that. And then I would say to them, well, let's put that out there. Let's cause other people in Region 10 to know how you feel about this. And then they were like, no, I can't do that because my family would see and my friends would see, and then they will call me a sellout. So I think that that might be the same attitude that some of the AP and UAFC people have towards a poll, and they might be looking to see, they might be scared to say what they really want to say about the People's Progressive Party, which a lot of PNC people were taught way from since small, that we have to be PNC until we die. So it doesn't matter what the PPP or any other political party does for you, you have to remain PNC because of your skin color. So a lot of people were taught that. And imagine now that an independent person or organization show up to interview these people, and mommy and daddy watching in the back there to hear what they're going to say. Obviously they're going to say what mommy and daddy wants to hear, because they know if they really, this is of course I'm talking about some of the people, they know that if they really say how they feel, they're gonna get a backlash from their friends, their families, and stuff like that. So they prefer to echo these sentiments in private and to send messages to myself and other, of course, other activists. I'm sure Mr. Peters and Mr. Patrick would have experienced the same thing, where a lot of the PNC people, they want to come out and they want to say what they want to say, but because of family and other issues, they might not be able to. So I want to suggest that the poll is incorrect. We're looking way more at maybe 80, way up in the 80% of Guyanese. Because if you just look, Michael, just look at what Guyana was 2015 to 2020, and then the other 6 months where we were victims of robbery or an attempted robbery. And look at where Guyana is today. Just over 6 months when Irfan Ali, His Excellency, was sworn as president. And you would understand what I'm saying, that I don't think the poll is correct. I think we're looking at way more up into the 80s or 90% approval rating for the People's Progressive Party.
You made me smile, Ossie. You're looking at a 15-point margin of error. This is new ground you're
Not
breaking.
error, Michael, not error. Not
Okay.
error. I would think omission, but not error at all. I'm thinking people are holding back. But yeah. Well, yeah.
I
I,
think what
I,
happened, the younger generation away from this whole politics of, PNC is Black Party, PPP is a Eastern Union. I think that's fading away. Party is party. Who do the right thing? That's where and the people go. So I think politics is fading away when it comes to a party and voting.
let's talk about the writing. Patrick mentioned the writing, gentlemen, and I'm gonna throw this out in any order for discussion. And it is not exactly what I had in mind to discuss, but you said the right thing. Let's qualify it a bit. We've seen attempts by APNU AFC to engage in projects that hopefully they could have boasted at the next elections, whenever that next elections would have been held. In their estimation, I'm still not convinced that there was any intention to hold an election in 2020 or anytime soon, and I stand corrected. However, there isn't much or there isn't many tangible uh, and visible structures and projects that were completed or executed or conceptualized. And I continue to refer to that as Mr. Granger boasted, former president, the largest stadium in the Caribbean. But when you look at Georgetown today, and unfortunately you may be seeing photos, Ossie, you're not here to experience it in person. You're not here to drive on the streets and experience goosebumps. When you drive at any part of Georgetown and other parts of the country, when you traverse any part of this country and you see the massive infrastructural development and progress that has been taken, that continues to be taking place since August 2020. It's unimaginable that in less than a year, so many things have been happening. And, and you juxtapose that against, or you compare that to uh, the level of development you saw between 2015 and 2021. It's unimaginable. So I think, in my own opinion, my own estimation, those are the right things to which Patrick refer. And I do agree with you, Patrick. Also, you're denied the privilege of having goosebumps. But the three of us, whenever we traverse the streets and we traverse the communities in Guyana, you see new roads, you see new structures. It's unimaginable, gentlemen, in any order.
Well, I wanna hop in here, Michael. Forgive me, because you spoke about David Granger's massive, largest stadium in the Caribbean. But I wanna say to Mr. Granger, I could go and dig a massive hole, and then put a tarpaulin over it or a shed over it, and say that I constructed the largest shelter in the Caribbean, right? But it's just a hole with a shed on it, and we could call it a shelter, we could call it whatever it is. Once it's big enough, I could say that too, right?
Point taken.
That
Point
is like
taken.
the old view. That is like the old former President Ranger went and had his big grand opening, and they didn't even have a needle in there, or a bed, or a fan. Nothing in there. It wasn't a hospital. It was just a building. In building, there was no oxygen in there or anything. And he had his big grand opening of a hospital, and you don't even have a needle.
Gordon, I think right there, that comparison or statement by the former president then would have been enough to convince every Guyanese that the APNU, AFC, or the PNC government then was one that was totally were clueless as it relates to development, and they're visionless, because one would expect that a government will be interested in upgrading the country infrastructure and otherwise. And if you're going to look at what we had uh, before AP and AFC came into government, look at our national stadium. And if you're going to build what he consider the Durban Park or whatever it is called, um, and you're going to say that you're going to make that comparison. I think that's an insult to Guyanese, and it shows that they're nothing but a bunch of visionless and clueless people.
Of course, constructed at the expense of the historical national park. And the national park just wasn't. Many people, I haven't heard many discussions in this regard. And I think we have other issues to discuss, but I believe I have not heard many discussions along the line that the national park is not just, or it is not just a stadium. It is so much more that was subject to overgrowth and a whole range of other issues. When you had a created position in the person of a director of public parks. I heard in some quarters, persons jokingly said director of public parks. I'm not going to get into that, but already there is a National Parks Commission, but yet the need was found to pay a super salary to a director of public parks. And absolutely nothing has been done at public parks. Attempts were made to create new public parks, wasting, and when you look at the Merriman's Mall between Versailles Road or between Irving Street and perhaps Ornock or Albert Street, you see a very visible indication of wastage of millions of taxpayers' monies in the name of creating some fancy park or something of the sort. Never came off the ground. Significant expenditure, and I'm sure much more expenditure than was actually spent. So much for that. And I want us to move on to the issue of Guyana's fight against COVID-19. And I believe former health minister, advisor to the current minister of health, Dr. Leslie Ramsamy, sometime over this weekend, he hit a home run. And I want to reference a comment he made. And this deals specifically with myths about the national vaccination effort. Of course, the government of Guyana announced on Friday, I believe, or Thursday, that every Guyanese 18 years and older are now qualified to receive the COVID-19 vaccines. Before we get to that, however, there has been a spate of, whether instigated or otherwise, some levels of disobedience to the COVID-19 guidelines and rules. And today, the COVID-19 Task Force Secretariat found it necessary to issue and remind Guyanese that there are critical components of the work of the government and the work of every Guyanese to ensure that we beat this pandemic. And the statement from the task force reads, the National COVID-19 Task Force is reminding citizens that the gazetted COVID-19 emergency measures number 16 for the period April 1 to April 30, 2021 remains unchanged and in force. The following is restated for information and adherence. 1. The curfew period remains 10:30 p.m. to 4 a.m. 10:30 p.m. to 4 a.m. 2. Only essential services are authorized to operate on a 24-hour basis. 3. Other services and businesses are required to close operations by 9:30 p.m. This is to facilitate workers getting home by or before 10:30 p.m. And I inserted the word before. And 4, all persons involved in essential services should have in their possession a valid company identification card accompanied by a letter from their employer verifying that they are performing essential services at a specified area or location. The task force goes on to say all citizens are reminded that failure to adhere to these guidelines can lead to prosecution. So it was found necessary for this release to be made. But I want to reflect on a comment or a post made by advisor to the Minister of Health, Dr. Leslie Ramsamy. And in recent days, you have found what has been described as anti-vaxxers, more specifically and or especially in Region 10, who have been engaged in organized campaigns to discourage citizens from taking and receiving the COVID-19 vaccines. Of course, you know, and I'm falling short of saying that these anti-vaxxers are politically motivated. While I have my own view, I am stopping short of saying that. However, I believe there is significant hypocrisy in that the advisor to the Minister of Health found it necessary to call out specific individuals. And he said, Dr. Leslie Ramsamy said, my Sunday challenge, can Mr. David Granger, former president, Mr. Harmon, that's Joe Harmon, opposition leader, Mr. Lawrence, and other PNC leaders tell their supporters that the vaccines for COVID are good for them and that the supporters should take the vaccine just like they did. Dr. Ramsamy goes on to say, can the AFC-WPA do the same, essentially? Would they say why they took the vaccine but have never said a word to their supporters? Never. The COVID-19 relief is another matter, but Dr. Ramsamy goes on to say, the time has come for them to show their supporters they care about their supporters. And this has been demonstrative over the past 12 months or so, especially, not just the last 12 months, especially the last 12 months, by the leadership of those opposition political parties to their supporters. They have demonstrated a significant degree of uncaringness, for want of a better word. Now, you have taken your COVID-19 vaccines, but you never found it necessary to say to your supporters, I took it and you should too.
Mike,
I'm going to go on a limb to say, my last comment, I'm going to go on a limb to say that I believe that it's mostly supporters of the main opposition who have been opposed to taking the vaccine. Many have come on board, but many people listen to their leaders, and I believe it is time for them to be responsible. Gentlemen.
Michael, the PNC, again, I'll follow your lead and not refer to this bunch of people who masquerade our country in green shirts or yellow shirts and call them nothing less than PNC, because the AFC and everything has been morphed into the PNC, and then the PNC revert back to its old behavior. But the PNC historically has shown that it has no care, respect, or anything of that sort for its supporters. It reminds me of a situation when you were talking about the vaccine. Reminds me of a situation where we had here in the United States also, where there was a certain hypocrite who was bad mouthing in the highest office in the land in the United States, bad mouthing the vaccine and downplaying the seriousness of COVID-19 and everything. And we found out that this hypocrite in chief took his vaccine before. So I think that the PNC is using the same playbook, and the PNC has shown they're using the same playbook now. I think he learned from them, because traditionally the PNC has shown that they have no interest or no care for their supporters. During the height of the pandemic in March is when the pandemic was now now beginning. People, experts did not know what was going on with the pandemic, how it's going to affect people. We learn over time. But during March and April and May of last year, when people were grappling with this pandemic and it was destroying people, remember, it was the same PNC who were calling out their supporters to go in front of the High Court every time they made a challenge to stop the election declaration. It was the same PNC who called them out and say, y'all come out in your thousands. While the experts, all they were saying is, listen up, man. There's a pandemic. It's killing people. You guys, it is necessary for us to lock down the countries, not just Guyana, Even the great United States, which I live in, were in the same situation because we were all learning about the pandemic together. There was no experience. Nobody was experienced in dealing with COVID-19. So everybody, even in this country, in the UK, in Canada, they were saying to their supporters, saying to their citizens, we have to lock down. It is not something we desire to do, but we have to lock down so that you can stay safe and we can figure out where we're going. Meanwhile, APNU shouting. Every time there's a challenge to challenge, they make a challenge to the election to stop the elections declaration and an attempt to steal the elections. They call out their people, oh, y'all come out in droves, come out in front of the high court. So, Michael, I'm reminding you guys that PNC never cared about their supporters. So this is just another drop in the big bucket of uncariness.
You know, Michael, while you would have said that the advisor to the Honorable Minister of Health would have hit a home run with the comment which you would have read earlier, I believe it went beyond that. He would have exposed the selfish nature of the PNC, and particularly the leadership of the PNC and the opposition. It is clear that they have no interest in the livelihood of Guyanese, and particularly their supporters, because by now every Guyanese understand that they understand the seriousness of COVID-19. And if they can consciously take a decision to protect themselves while exposing their support base, this is a life or death situation. This is no longer about securing votes, unless they seriously believe that dead people can vote. Because why would you want to, as a country, as a nation, for us to be successful against the fight against COVID? All of us as Guyanese must play our part. Hence, the opposition in this country should play their part in being a responsible opposition. Gordon, it is a sad thing, and I think it is time Guyanese, particularly those who would have supported the PNC in the past, to start seeing them for who they are. If they are willing to expose you to the deadliest virus we know presently, while protecting themselves, those persons should not be considered as leaders. They should never be considered as leaders. Gordy would have particularly mentioned Region 10. But only today, I was in conversation with a gentleman I know. And that was the topic. The negative, all the negativity that are being spread by the opposition to prevent people from taking the vaccine. At the end of the conversation, this gentleman, he told me that, you know what, he's going to take his vaccine and act like he never took it, because he understands the seriousness thousands of Guyanese would have already took their vaccines. How many deaths reported? How many are the other things that the opposition is spreading would have been reported? And it is time Guyanese start thinking for themselves. Because while they're willing to destroy you and your families, they're busy protecting themselves and their families. While we have a government that is willing to protect every Guyanese against COVID-19 at any cost or at all costs, we cannot overlook the fact that we also have an opposition that is willing to risk the life of every Guyanese at all costs. So we need to start seeing these people for who they are, Guyanese. We all have a role to play in this fight against COVID. And I want to urge all Guyanese to take their vaccine.
While you comment on this issue, Patrick, I want you to be a little more specific from the standpoint of, I know your activism and much of your time is spent in the southern section of Georgetown, which is even greater a stronghold of the People's National Congress. What is the mood on the ground as it relates to the taking of the vaccine and perhaps the local leaders, the type of leadership they have been providing? I'm talking about the PNC leaders, or the misinformation that has been spreading, especially in the southern section of Georgetown, Patrick.
Okay. First, like you said, the leaders of the PNC, they're all hypocritical people. They have standard. One standard for themselves, another for the supporters. They're telling people that, oh, your blood going to clot and all these different things going to happen to you. They already had their vaccine. I had my shot already because no, they're not the scientists. They cannot tell no one this vaccine is not for you. People out of this country, in other countries, and they might have clot blood, but you have to remember it's different environment. Living in a tropical country, these people are living in the cold. Everybody body sit is different. So I didn't hear with any clot blood. I heard with clot blood in other part of the world, other continents and stuff. So I think every guy need to go out and get their vaccine. We're doing good in the world. Like we already meet to the bottom stage of distributing vaccine. We're down to the 18. When many are still dealing with the 50s and 60s. We're at a teenage now. And I think all the Guyanese who listen leaders or false leaders and say don't get a vaccine, they should stop listening to them and go for the vaccine. Don't mix politics with it. Don't mix your life. This is your life. The PNC are doing everything they could do to bring this country down. And bring it down, bringing the shit down, bringing every Guyanese down. And I'm asking every Guyanese to stop listening to this false information that the vaccine do that to do nothing. You get a little side effect here, but what? A little temperature, just like if you run in the rain and get temperature, just to aspirin, you'll be okay. That's what I did. I'm asking every Guyanese to go to get your vaccine, and don't use who walking around here preaching one thing and doing the other thing. Because like the health advisor said, that is and they're telling these people not the vaccine is totally wrong. That shows you don't care about the people, you only care about yourself. I can't believe leaders of the nation doing their followers something like this. This is a very serious thing. This is a pandemic. Your life. This is Not you catch a little common flu, very serious thing. And I hate to know and to see that leaders, not the man, but leaders are telling people not to get the vaccine. I think they should stop doing this. It's not right. They should refrain from it totally.
I absolutely agree with you, Patrick. And we also have to look at it from the perspective of the successes so far in the rollout of the vaccine. And I'm also going to talk a bit, all COVID related, about the COVID cash grant and the second phase of the cash grant distribution and the misinformation peddled by the opposition. And I mean, we continue to reference comments and mischievous initiatives pursued by the opposition, but we have to call a spade, and we have to expose them for who they are. These levels of misinformation and these bits and incidents of misinformation cannot be ignored. And an ideal microcosm of the levels to which they will go to peddle misinformation was in the recent attempt to drive fear in the Guyanese people and raising false allegations about kidnappings. I don't want to get back to that. I believe it has been sufficiently debunked, but I believe it was serious to the point that mention could be made. And that attempt of stoking public fear comes back to the distribution and the taking of those vaccines. And also, there is no Guyanese who will argue, absolutely no Guyanese, unless you comprise one of those opposition seats in the National Assembly. No Guyanese would argue that the $25,000 COVID cash grant initiative is a bad thing. So you could not say it's a bad thing. So you found every conceivable thing, true or false, mostly false, to criticize the initiative. And I believe, and I thank Prime Minister Mark Phillips, Honorable Mark Phillips. Yesterday he was in one of those East Coast communities. And many questions were asked about phase two. And he put it into perspective, quelling all the misconceptions about the phase two and who signed or who did not sign the pink slip. And he said to one person, pink slip or not, every household in Guyana will receive their cash grant. The government has set out to ensure that its people, and when I refer to its people, I refer to every Guyanese citizen, every household in Guyana, irrespective of who you support politically. The government has set out to ensure that every one of its people will benefit from the COVID-19 cash grant, whether as a direct recipient or whether of a member of a household which received. So make no mistake, let's be clear about it. Phase two has started in hinterland communities, and it will get to the coast, it will get to every community in Guyana. And rest assured, every household in Guyana will benefit from the COVID-19 cash grant. And I'm happy that the Prime Minister, Mr. Phillips, put this issue into perspective and essentially put the fears and the misinformation that was peddled by the opposition, put those things to rest. It has started and it's on the move. And those who are doing the distribution will get to you eventually. Gentlemen, I just thought that I should raise this issue for us to discuss a bit, because there continues to be criticisms of such a wonderful initiative. And I'm sure if Mr. Granger wants to really, really be honest with himself, he could come and national television and explain how proud he was to be a recipient of the $25,000 cash grant. Of course, there was some political gymnastics after, with a few families from some one of the communities.
Well, if I go again, Michael, before I touch on the cash grant, I wanna say, I said it on one of my radio programs that if we had social media when we were taking those vaccines that protect us up to this day, the rubella vaccine, the measles vaccine for measles, pox, tetanus, whatever, all the vaccines that we got as kids. If we had social media back then, there would have been a campaign against the vaccines. But nevertheless, there was no social media, so there was no campaign against those vaccines, and those vaccines kept us safe all these years. So I want to encourage everybody as a survivor of COVID 19, I want to encourage everybody, every single person, go get your vaccine when your time is right. As it relates to as it relates, when your time is ready, sorry, when it's your turn, please go get the vaccine. As it relates to the cash grant, you see, Michael, we have some people, unfortunately, would prefer to break down. And the PNC's modus operandi has always been break down, broke up, destroy, burn, beat up, and that sort of thing. It was never about development and building. So when you listen to the PNC, they're going to criticize everything that is for development and upliftment because they do not believe in that. They do not have that. They do not operate within that psyche. They don't have that psyche. If it's not something that is, something that is going to destroy or something that we can fight over, the PNC is not interested in that. Even you see it at Congress Place many times. They're fighting right now. You understand? While the country, while Irfan Ali and the People's Progressive Party is busy at every juncture, trying to unite the country, trying to show our people that we're one people and we should live as one, and doing everything, all the initiatives to promote unity and social cohesion in our country, the PNC is going around the country telling everybody that, you know what, oh yes, you're black, so you could never get ahead in the PPP. And if you get a house, that's tokenism. If you get a proper job, that's tokenism. They're gonna find a negative in everything. This is not a constructive opposition. A constructive opposition will oppose things that they see that could destroy, or if they even if they see a little bit of something that could destroy or damage something, you oppose that. But when it comes to things that could benefit the country, a constructive opposition actually stays silent and wait for another opportunity to criticize. But this PNC, they criticize everything. So they're even telling their supporters that you getting this $25,000, right? It's not good for you. Somehow they're trying to convince some of their supporters it's not good for you. And unfortunately, we have people in Guyana who fall for that, and they believe that, but they collect anyway. They collect anyway, but they listen to their leaders. And according to Valda Lawrence, you listen to as a PNC, you listen to your leader. If your leader said jump overboard, you jump overboard. You don't question. So that's what we have with the PNC, unfortunately.
Patrick
You
or
know,
Rion, you want to weigh in on this issue before we move on?
I'm thinking Mr. Rogers would have said that the opposition, they usually, well, the present opposition, they oppose every single thing, basically because they know they're the opposition, not understanding that the People's Progressive Party civic government is rolling out a lot of programs that are beneficial to all Guyanese, even their supporters.
Indeed.
You know, this cash grant, the 25,000 cash grant, I can remember when we started this program in Region 5, the opposition they had in Region 5, they had a lot of negative things to say. But it was difficult because we went into every single community, and every Guyanese who would have qualified under the forest fees would have benefited. So what they did then, they start to they took a position to start spreading negative things about the pink farms. So we had many communities who would have, many persons rather, who would have refused to fill the pink farms because they were influenced by the opposition. But I can recall when the president would have came publicly and said that the second phase will commence shortly. That is when most of the persons who would have refused realized the selfish nature of the PNC. And I am happy, Gordon, that the second phase, phase two, would have commenced. And I'm confident that it will reach to the coast. And every Guyanese will benefit from this much needed relief that is provided by the government of Guyana. So, yet once again, the PNC would have tried to prevent Guyanese, ordinary Guyanese, from benefiting from the resources that are provided by the government of Guyana. And it's a sad thing. It's a sad thing. All of us understand the hardship that came with COVID. All of us understand the difficulties family face because of this pandemic. And the PNC can look at poor families, families that supported them, look them in the eyes and force them to be beneficiary of this 25,000. But I would always say to them that we have a government that cares. We have a government that understands the difficulties that Guyanese face. And I'm confident that every Guyanese will benefit regardless of the effort, the negative efforts of the PNC.
Patrick, your closing comments. We're practically out of time. On more specifically on the cash grant distribution.
Yeah, the cash grant. It's funny and strange that this of the PNC they condemn everything in cash grant, and still Mr. Ranger had nerves to collect it until people comment about it. Then he share it out. That is so. If it's not good, it's bad, or if it's not coming, why did you collect it? That showed the hypocritical way about these people. They have to stop being hypocritical. The cash grant helps I received it, and it did good for me. I went to the tree, I pay a few bills, so it helped others the same way. And people should just wait and people will come back, and they will you will get yours. Everybody will get grant, the cash grant. So to be patient and stop listening to all negative here. A few people wasn't at home, so they didn't get it, but they still did. They still go get it, even though they didn't get the pink slip. So I don't know why they're panicking, and people are asking me on the street, Patrick, I said, be patient, you're going to get it. Everything have a system. Everything have to be documented. You can't just run with a bag of money and say, here. No, you don't do it like that. So I'm asking patience, and they cash grants.
Gentlemen, our time is gone, but I'm more than happy that you joined us. I'm going to give each one of you 30 seconds, your closing comments. Since you're on the ball, Patrick, 30 seconds, your parting comments.
I'm asking all Guyanese to let's unite let's live as one. Let's forget religion and party and all. Let's live as one. We have a paradise here. This is part. We don't have bombs falling like the police. We don't have guns riddling down day building crumble. Please, let's unite the country and build it together. Please. Thank you for listening to me tonight.
Rion?
Yes, Gordon. I would want to urge our Guyanese to stay safe, observe the protocol, the COVID-19 protocols, and get vaccinated because we can only beat, as a nation, we can only beat COVID-19 if we all play our role, play our part.
Ossie?
Well, I wanna say to my Guyanese people living out here in the diaspora, we living out here in the diaspora, we are excited with what we see going on in our country. We're proud, and we are spreading the word that Guyana is back. Guyana is open for business, and to all Guyanese, I want to say that your better days are within reach. You had a government from 2015 to 2020 that lacked vision. Now you have a government with a vision. Protect yourself against COVID 19, protect yourself and your families, guys, and your better days are within reach. Thank you.
Before I close tonight's program, I shouldn't, and I really want to say thank you and to say congratulations to First Lady Mrs. Arya Ali. I believe she has been at the forefront and she is very instrumental in ensuring the beauty of this country is amplified in many of the initiatives she has undertaken. I know she's involved in other initiatives from a health perspective and otherwise. But the role she has played in Georgetown with the Georgetown seawall, the recent roundabout at Mary, and all the other initiatives that she has been a part of in ensuring as I said, the beauty of this city, the beauty of this country is amplified. I believe I speak on behalf of many First Lady when I say to you, thank you for your service. Continue to do the good work, and you have the support of the majority of us Guyanese. Uh, I'd like to thank Mr. Rion Peters, Mr. Ossie Rogers, Mr. Patrick John, very important activists in this country and for this country, and very passionate, as I said before, about the ensuring Guyana's democracy is sustained. Gentlemen, I am I am more than proud of you and very happy that you took time out to be a part of this program tonight.
Thank you for inviting me, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you for having me.
I'd like to thank our listeners and viewers in Guyana and abroad for being a part of this program. We will continue with you on Tuesday evening. My colleague Edward Lynn will join you at 8 p.m. I'm your host, Michael Gordon. See you again on Wednesday at 8. Thanks for being a part of our program.